Like many people in Marvel Contest of Champions at the moment, we've all picked up a Mr. Fantastic for the first time. Some have picked up the 7-star version. So what I wanted to do for this video is take out for a spin a rank 4 version on the Content Creator Beta, utilizing a bit of a difference in what I set up with Stat Focus, but also StatCast Relic, and also look at why he might be a very underrated buff blocker. Now, spoiler alert, I don't think Mr. Fantastic does a high amount of damage, and of course, it's further debatable whether you want to actually put it within your roster to help out in any kind of reason, shape, or form. It's still a champion that doesn't really need to be awakened. Yes, his awakened ability is all about improving combat power rate, and that's handy for rotation. And it could be beneficial to get to SP2's quick on rotation if you do that rotation. SP3's, again, if you want to do that rotation, because different things mean different things. If you start with your pre-fights, you're largely doing heavy rotation or special rotation to keep those 3 debuffs on. So for those that are interested, the 3 pre-fight debuffs you do get on the champion are the Petrify, the combat power rate reduction, and also the debuff Siphon, which of course increases the potency of damage over time debuffs. Only really applicable, if I can get my words out, with the SP2, where you get that shock, which of course is going to do a large amount of damage, but not a super amount of damage. But it will stay on longer because of Siphon. I decided to set my Mr. Fantastic up with critical damage rating, but you could also do critical rating as well. I just think that because you're doing critical damage, you're getting critical rating quite high, but you're also wanting to extend the potential of damage number. I'm gone with critical damage rating, so it's debatable whether or not you think that's going to be the right play or not. And the relic I decided to choose was the StatCast relic here, the Captain America one, the Infinity War version, mainly because I think this was the only one I had available to me. Otherwise, I would have done or found one that I could access, because I can't for whatever reason, I think on the CCP beta, one that has more emphasis on attack elements. So the block proficiency, I don't really want. I want a different one. But this one had critical damage rating, so I kind of thought that might be beneficial, because then we'll get higher critical damage numbers, so to speak. Jumping into some footage right now, this is a long HP fight, and this is just so I can test my metal, so to speak, on the rotation. I effectively tried to go with like an SP2 rotation. I think that if I was to approach the champion with Liquid Courage Double-Edged Masteries, I would SP3 rotate, therefore it could give me a bit more damage than what I've showcased. But you have to draw a line when kind of recording these videos and preparing footage on how much time you kind of like spend going, did I explore this angle or that angle? Either way, there's something that emerged from my playing with the champion, and I played a couple of hours with the champion and kind of got my feelers around what I felt was kind of good about it. So whether or not I was all about getting to like my SP2 rotate and getting those 3 debuffs. So you set the pre-fight off for the 3 debuffs. You then look to kind of like parry heavy and keep them on if you're not going to get to a special attack. But the main thing that emerged, and now the footage that you can see is emerging, that I was like, right, this is actually a relatively good nullifier. Yes, not every single, but I'd say 90% of champions that gain buffs will be able to be staggered. So that gives me a nice SP1 rotation. One of the biggest problems I have going up against Mangog is, yeah, you could use science champions that have like a slow debuff, or indeed have the rate of damage that you wouldn't have to worry about the champion being unstoppable and unblockable. But did you see that right there that was on screen? That's right. Because I threw down my stagger at the right time, I was able to suppress it. Now, yes, you do have some certain things where if he throws multiple SP1s, that's going to be beneficial to me personally, and what's going to be countering that, the weakness, SP1, so to speak. Yes, that will come into play. But it's like doubling up on those particular elements. But yes, like I found the champion being more of a cosmic suppression-based champion. Again, similar situation with like Venom pool. If I chose to rotate with a parry heavy method, because trying to time in a heavy attack, look, in this day and age, trying to trust the AI and MCOC is not a wise thing. But definitely finding an option of a champion that's outside of the Mystic line that you can use as stagger. I think Anti-Venom and I think, is it Titania, have those stagger-based elements. The ability to suppress incoming buffs on the enemy. But it goes a bit above and beyond that. Not just about suppressing the buffs, like you see, I just suppressed Energize right there. So I can stop champions like Venom pool and anything in particular just by the SP1 rotation. Having taunt as well, I think, is important, because if you're going up against tricky champions that build power quickly, have buffs, you can find this champion as a very good alternative if you're stuck for an option in other pieces of content. And the champion really comes into its own when facing off against power. And here's the example: Hyperion. Hyperion for years, this is why Mr. Fantastic became over the years like a very niche type champion to suppress anything that's got buffs and a lot of power. It's difficult as well with Hyperion because he does build a rate of like special attacks, and that's from power. You know, he's building power exponentially. And you're probably noticing, like, I'm not kind of like doing an SP1 rotation. Well, there's a longer build. Like, I want to suppress the power. So the more he does his SP1s, the more it's going to be beneficial to me. The more that I get to my SP2, I'm going to double up, triple up on, you can see there, triple up on my Petrify, my combat power rate reduction, which is going to be important for situations possibly like this. Not every single time calls for this, but it's definitely helpful nevertheless. So you're going to see it over time. You're going to see it soon where his power is actually going to start going down, which is really, really good. And again, forms this kind of counter. Like, it's kind of the power bars going back, which is like ideal. It's a niche power control and buff-based champion, which kind of like makes this, again, another interesting alternative option if you're looking for. Now, I should have done, my mistake, I should have tried the champion against, say, Serpent or other kind of champions. I don't know, theoretically, it would be the best option, with other types of mystics tend to be better options. I'm coming into Shathra really being my kind of favorite Serpent-based counter, but then again, that's kind of like an MCOC thing, isn't it? Like, hey, here's a defender that's tricky, well, here's a counter, and you can kind of like enjoy that. And yeah, I opted for SP1 rotations at a certain point, but I don't really have to worry. Once you've got the element of Petrify down and the offensive power rate reduction, you can just SP2, have that Petrify in place, and it then becomes this kind of very underrated option to suppress everything. Now, if I had the Awaken ability up to a higher signature, I would be building power and rotating out of the wazoo, right? But this is an unawakened, this is not unawakened, this is an awakened, but only like one signature. But I think an unawakened version of the champion does relatively well. You can see, of course, with the extent of damage takedown, that was brilliant. Now, against champions like Winter Soldier, where there's no thrills, spills, and I'm looking for like a counter option or anything like that, you can largely see that there's a good amount of damage just in the basic fights. And I think that if I was to use Mr. Fantastic, it will be to have pre-fights for other champions in Alliance Wars, it will be to be specific content, and more than likely will be a rank 3 7-star option I look to put into stuff like Valiant difficulty, providing the situation calls for it. I do have a 6-star version, but I think a 7-star version with at least a rank 3 7-star is acceptable. And with those freebies that Kabam gave, those rank up gems, whether you use it on Mr. Fantastic or not, it's definitely like a nice potency on stuff. But sometimes the crits don't come in. That was a nice crit there with a heavy attack. Boom, they're not so good. So maybe a critical rating stat cast, or kind of putting that in the stat focus for critical rating would have been better. But down to a personal preference, isn't it, of like what you like, what you don't. That was a messed up special attack right there. But I thought, well, rather than going Winter Soldier's starting fight, which I know we kind of do with the videos, let's kind of like start with this. But 40k plus, this is a rank 4 7-star, by the way. It's still a nice kind of like just a simple heavy attack there. That's nice. We like that, don't we? So yes, Mr. Fantastic as a rank 4 does do a job, but it depends on what you think he can do a job for. I will, as I said, be put in mind to rank 3. He can do a job in Valiant difficulty. He can also do a job for various pieces of content. His helpful pre-fight now means that a 7-star version could be more prevalent in different areas and could expand into me using him as part of a team in very Kabam-specific type of content, like Wheel of Fate. Hey, use specific 7 stars. You can only use 7 stars. Well, This was great to get this champion. Of course, divides opinion on whether or not he does a lot of damage, and we've seen he does do a good amount of damage, and I would definitely use him, but it's like, would he be taken into a boss fight unless there was some specific nodes that helped out massively? There could be a specific boss in like Act 8, 9 even, or even whatever the future is, Act 10 of the story mode. But yeah, I really like the champion, so I can't really complain, and I will be using him. It's just I don't think I'll be using him for endgame content or boss-based fights, unless specifically there's something there. It will just largely be for stuff like Valiant quest, or it will be for general questing or pre-fights. So yeah, where will you be using yours, or will you not be using a 7-star version? Your thoughts as always welcomed in the comments, and I'll see you all soon. Bye bye.